So Xbox came in out of nowhere during their partner preview event and showed some gameplay footage of the Metal Gear Solid 3 remake, Metal Gear Solid Delta, Snake Eater, and I figured I would watch this trailer, react to some of what's shown, and also talk a bit about some of the comparisons people have made on the internet. They've shown, side-by-side footage, and, it's definitely a very stark difference in graphics fidelity. And then there's also the question of, does it capture the vibe of, what the original gave off? And then how does the gameplay differ from the original? All those things we can kind of get a glimpse of in this trailer. So let's first take a look at it. I'll kind of pause here and there along the way to comment. Here we go. So that's the backpack from the beginning of the game. This is that swamp area at the beginning of the game as well. One little graphical detail here is you can see the mud kind of shifting as Snake passes by it, which is kind of a neat detail. Now, in the original game, this looked less like water and more like sludge, like liquid sludge. So that's an interesting change. Like, this is, you sink through here if you stay here too long in the original game. Snake is kind of hugging the kind of shore here, and so he's not sinking, it would seem. But it's interesting that they made this more of an aquatic effect rather than something more mud-like. That's an interesting change. You got the alligators there. So this is a cool effect of seeing the sludge kind of dripping from Snake's suit. You can see all of the details with Snake's suit just getting covered in that sludge. And definitely looks good from a fidelity standpoint. Definitely a big step up graphically. And one thing we see here that's really interesting is crouch walking, which was introduced in the 3DS version, MGS3 Snake Eater 3D, and it's cool to see that gameplay feature make it into this version of Metal Gear Solid 3, as that was a very welcome addition that I think should have been in the original and felt really good when they introduced it in the 3DS version. In some ways, gameplay-wise, the 3DS version with the over-the-shoulder aiming and alongside that, the crouch walking, it was almost like the best version of MGS3. And so it's cool to see like all of those enhancements kind of like all come together here. So the crouch walking is definitely going to be very welcome. And we can right here see a look at Snake's model without the headband, without the eye patch. This is early in the game. And the weapons and everything, the knife, the pistol, and the environments, again, from a fidelity standpoint, definitely, quite a big step up from the original. Right here, we got to glean at gameplay. Now, look at how smooth that transition was. In the original game, you have to, like, take the analog stick and push it forward. In MGS3 or MGS Delta Snake Eater, it looks more like MGS5, where you can kind of just put Snake on a wall and he'll automatically hug it, is how this looks. They are trying to modernize the gameplay. That's something they have already said. And it looks like they're taking cues from MGS5 to make the control scheme and just the general feel of navigation and, shooting your guns and stuff like that just more modern feeling, which is definitely very welcome, because as much as I love MGS3, going back to play that after having played MGS5, it can definitely feel clunky, and it feels like they're smoothing out some of that clunkiness and drawing from more modern gameplay elements for things like just hugging the wall. I'm wondering if there's now a button to hug the wall, or if you have to hold the analog stick to stick to the wall, or if it's automatic. Regardless, you can kind of take a sneak peek there like you can in MGS5. And then that's a smooth transition right there. Just in general, animations, camera work, and all these things, everything just transitions a lot more smoothly. You can see this is the first-person perspective we're all so familiar with from the original MGS3, and this is no doubt the non-lethal pistol. The bridge section, where a lot of stuff happens in Snake Eater. And I mean, this is, any fan of MGS3 will recognize this segment. And exact enemy placement, assets and everything, literally the same tree, the same grass and everything, just visually enhanced. But level design is literally just identical. Very smooth animation, very, familiar, but smoothed out as well. The animations all feel like they're taken directly out of MGS3, with some, you know, sort of touching up here and there. This right here is the battle arena where you fight the Pain. He's standing up here shooting bees at you, and you're here and you have to like dive in the water and stuff like that to avoid some of the bees and then come back up, shoot them where you can. So that should be fun and interesting to see how they either maintain the boss battles the way they are from the original game, or, you know, enhance aspects of it or reinterpret aspects of it to make up for sort of the more modern controls. I'm wondering just how close they'll stick to the original. The battle arena does look dope with the light kind of seeping through these holes in the ceiling and stuff like that. This is definitely gonna... Oh, and the water effects, the lighting here. That looks kind of dope. But yeah, that's gonna bring back memories for people who, yeah, remember MGS3 fondly. We got to look at some of the wildlife, all of them really well animated and really well realized, you know. Definitely pretty high graphics fidelity there. I am noticing some like weird like artifacting going on with the water splashes here. They look a little wonky, but this is like pre-alpha footage, so there's stuff that's going to get smoothed out, no doubt. But yeah, here's some more like animation work of Snake walking through the water with the sun behind him, and you know, he's got the bandana at this point. So this is Operation Snake Eater. Oh, this is Snake about to rescue Sokolov. This is a very well-known location that fans will remember. This sort of like ravaged, abandoned warehouse of sorts. The guard placement, the assets, and the way it's all placed and visually realized, it all, again, is exactly the same as MGS3, just higher visual fidelity. And here's a really nice close-up of Snake. The character model looks pretty dope. You can see all of the details on his beard, like strands of hair, and his mullet, classic Snake mullet. And he's wearing, of course, this fatigue, this specific camo that it works really well in this particular environment. And yeah, just a lot of cool details here. This segment we'll recognize from this is the mountainside segment. That's kind of like I want to say like halfway through the game ish. After you defeat the end, this is the area that you eventually come upon, and it's got, you know, the turrets, the soldiers, and during this section there is a chopper kind of flying around, and you don't want to get seen by it. And you can see that chopper right here, and so you have to like sneak through the trenches and everything. This is also very much exactly the same in terms of level design as it was in the original MGS3. Moving on. One last shot of the swamp area at the beginning of Snake Eater. And then we get the reveal that this is in fact being developed on the Unreal Engine 5 engine. Now, as much praise as I think the visuals do deserve so far, I will say that as I was watching the footage for the first time, the first thing that came into my mind was this looks like somebody decided to remake MGS3 on Unreal Engine 5, which is obviously exactly what they're doing here. This is an MGS3 remake, but there is an element of the visuals that look just a little bit Unreal Engine generic, if that makes sense. There's just a certain like color grading and hue that the original MGS3 has that this kind of loses a little bit. It still looks fantastic, but it, you know, there's some of that unique like aesthetic that it loses. It looks a little more generic in transition, but at the same time, it does look, you know, obviously just in general better, and there's a lot of cool just fidelity upgrades going on here that are worth commending. Just something that kind of stood out to me a little bit. It's not like the biggest deal in the world, but I feel like you will see this, especially when we look at the two games, the remake versus the original side by side. IGN did a really nice comparison video here. They published this on Twitter as well as on YouTube. I'll take a look at the YouTube version. So this is the comparison that IGN put together. And obviously, I mean, the textures and everything, that's clearly far superior in the in the remake. I mean, this is a night and day difference. But then you kind of zoom out and it's like you got this like really interesting green kind of hue going on here that gives this a much more kind of jungly vibe. And here everything's kind of a little colder, more neutral. And I feel like this is going to be a subjective matter ultimately in terms of what kind of hue and color scheme and aesthetic you prefer. But it's just something worth highlighting where this definitely does lose some of that color grading. But the animals look freaking so incredibly detailed. Look awesome. There's a nice comparison shot from the same setting, from the same location. And I mean, right here, everything looks, blurry and stuff like that. Here, everything just kind of comes across very clearly with nice depth of field effect. Again, there's that little detail of the mud kind of shifting with Snake's nearby movements. That's not the case in the original games. Like little details and additions like that, I think are really neat. But you can also see what I mean by like how this looks a lot more like sludge in the original game, whereas this looks more like just kind of water. Just something worth highlighting. And then right here, we get to see the detail of Snake being covered in that sludge. And, in the original game, you don't get anywhere near as much of this kind of detail. Nice little close-up of Snake, side by side. Yeah, I'm going to have to, take a close look at the character model to see, how... There's a certain look that Naked Snake has that you immediately recognize. And hopefully some of that doesn't get lost in transition in the Delta remake. So far, though, I feel like the character model looks good. Him being covered in mud here does make him look a little different than what he looks like in the original. And then animation-wise, he's got the same grip of the knife here, the same grip of the pistol, the same kind of pose. So all of that detail is maintained. So right here we can see the difference between how smooth that transition is. So in the remake, you can see kind of very... methodically leans against that wall. Here, the transition's very sudden, just very boom, snap, And I think those kinds of animation, gameplay, camera work enhancements will go a long way in modernizing this game. I think this is one area where I think we'll see a great deal of improvement, and I look forward to playing this game just without the clumsiness that you might experience with the original. And then right here, the transition to prone feels a lot smoother, more MGS5-esque in Delta. Whereas in MGS3, it's a little more sudden. And you can see that Snake in Delta continues that forward momentum as he goes prone. Whereas in MGS3, the original, he kind of stops short of continuing to walk and just kind of plops himself to the ground and then keeps crawling. Whereas in the Delta... animation here, it's this very smooth transition. I think that's a noticeable difference that again draws from MGS5 for the remake, which I think is a positive. But yeah, more visual comparison. You can see the hue is very different. In MGS3, the colors just feel warmer and just kind of greener. In MGS Delta, everything's a lot more neutral color, more sort of natural colors, if you will. So, I don't know. Which stylistic choice you prefer, I'd love to hear in the comments. But just how much more detail you see on the environments, the different landforms and rock formations, all that's really neat. But yeah, you can see right here a nice little comparison between Snake from the original and Snake in Delta, and the positioning of all the assets here. You can see even the way this breaks is exactly the same almost. So that's really neat. But yeah, once again, hue very different, much colder hue in Delta, which I'm curious to see how people react to. But exact same guard placement, straight up. You can see, this guard and this guard, they're in the exact same position that they should be. The crates here, the boxes, the pillar here, all that is literally identical. And then there's the final shot. So yeah, that's a kind of a nice little look at where the direction of Snake Eater remake is heading towards. Now, moving past that, here's a nice little comparison video of the wildlife in Metal Gear Solid Delta compared to Metal Gear Solid 3, and this is really cool. The animations are, practically identical. And this shot as well. I think the alligator's definitely been enhanced. There's more breeding going on, whereas in the original, they're a lot more still. But, the fact that the animation from 3 translates to Delta so well, with its graphical enhancements goes to highlight just how much attention to detail MGS3 had in its animation, where they can basically just take that and apply it to a more modern engine with photorealistic graphics, and it still looks really great. There are nice little touch-ups that they've done, like how the beak here opens briefly and stuff like that. But generally, it feels like they adapted the animation almost one-to-one with some little touch-ups that are also really welcome. So a really great job here. The animation work and the adaptation of it has been really well done. And yeah, just the amount of faithfulness that I'm seeing here to the original, that's definitely really, really positive. MGS3 is like so sacred. It's almost like the less you can mess with it, the better. But the more you can enhance in areas that definitely should be enhanced, the better. Here's another comparison video that kind of swipes between the remake and the original. You can really see both the enhancements and the changes in color and hue and all these things. This was released by Saiku1. I don't know how you pronounce that. Man, the more I look at the original's lighting, the more I miss it. The more I look at that stylistic hue that they applied, the more I miss it, I feel like they should bring back a little bit of that in the remake as well. I don't know, that's just me. Now, one area that I haven't seen a lot of videos compare is the mountainside segment here, which looks something like this in the original. You can see that with these vast vistas, and I mean, look at the fog effects here. This definitely looks so much better than it did in the original. You can see right here, this is exactly the same area. The trenches here and everything. The turret here is the turret here, and then this trench right here is this trench here, and Snake pops out of here and is kind of looking out. He literally pops out of here. Is that exact same location? There's like a little hill here that the soldier's coming up on. This area here, he's walking up here and he's about to head here. So literally, again, one-to-one level design and enemy placement and asset placement and environmental design, all these things. And then one last thing to close out the video is a comparison somebody made between Metal Gear Solid Delta's animations and Metal Gear Solid 5's animations. And when you look at those side by side, you can see that they definitely took some cues from Metal Gear Solid 5, maybe straight up adapted MGS5's animations one-to-one with some touch-ups and adjustments here and there. Look at this video here. Literally so many similar animations, so many similarities. And that smooth transition to prone, near identical. The same hanging animations, the same crouch walking animations. Yeah, it all feels very reminiscent of MGS5, which is the smart thing to do, honestly. MGS5 nailed the gameplay and the transitions between Snake's various modes so well that it's like, might as well just reuse that for MGS3. I think it's cool to see them take cues from what is the best feeling Metal Gear. MGS5 definitely has the best gameplay, and to see some of those aspects seep into the Snake Eater remake is, I think, a big plus. And that's really what Snake Eater needs above all else, is some enhancements in gameplay to make it feel more accessible to play, less clunky to play. And the visual enhancements just, obviously that's really going to be the thing that people look forward to see MGS3 in kind of a new light. But hopefully, I don't know, hopefully by launch day, they'll try to add some stylistic elements to make it just look a little less generic, is my only critique. But we'll see what happens. Now, with how the Metal Gear Collection launched for, Metal Gear Collection Volume 1, I'm hesitant to be just fully on board with Snake Eater Remake. There's a part of me that's asking, what's the catch? I thought the Metal Gear Collection should have been a home run, but it felt like the most minimal effort that they put into it. And in some ways, a regression from past releases. It does feel like they're putting a lot of love into Snake Eater Remake, into Metal Gear Solid Delta. So I want to be more optimistic than pessimistic, but I don't want to be fully sold on something. I don't want to just be caught in the marketing hype. I want to get my hands on the game, play it for myself, and hope that that Konami doesn't find a way to fuck this up, because they really cannot fuck this up. MGS3 is too special for too many people. They really have to put all the love and care into this and release it only when it's absolutely ready. Do not half-ass this one like you did with the Collection, Konami. For the love of God, please. But you know, so far, things are looking good. Generally, people are excited. And I'd love to hear what your thoughts and opinions are on the new gameplay footage that has been revealed by Xbox for Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater. Share your thoughts in the comments below. And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.